Good evening, everybody. Hello. Welcome. My name is Renee Bornfriend. I'm the president of the Tahali Homeowners Association, and I'm so thrilled to see everybody here. This is a great turnout. I have a couple of thank yous, so welcome to everybody. A couple of thank yous. I want to thank Colleen, who I think is not here anymore, but she arranged the room for us. Scott and his team for the audio-visual. Jason and Lori and Sabrina and Celia for helping out. Celia for helping out get the Timberline folks. We should have some Timberline folks here. If you're here and I call your name, just raise your hand. Phil Cyphers. Ben Coffin. I know Ben's going to be here later. Ted Leland. They are my fellow Homeowners Association of the Timberline communities. So I want to thank them for organizing the Timberline community. My colleague Dave, who is going to be the moderator tonight, who I'll introduce again later. Let me just take a moment now and introduce the candidates and also check their mics. So we have Karen McKnight. Hello. I'm going to now see if I can do this in order. You guys did sit in order. Rituja Indipur.
Good evening.
Did I do your name right?
Yes, you did.
Awesome. Christy Malchow. Yes, hello. Mayor Malchow. Let's see if I can get this one right. Kent Treen.
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. Ken Gamble.
Hello, Sammamish.
And Karen Howe.
Hi, everybody.
Awesome. You also have handouts that have very tiny thumbnails, so if you forget, you've got a little thumbnail to remind you. All right. Just to get a feel for the room, raise your hand if you live in Sahalli. Quite a lot. Awesome. Thanks. How about a hand for Sahalli folks? Raise your hand if you're from any of the Timberline communities. Awesome. Let's give a hand for Timberline. And let's raise your hand if you're in non-Sahalli or Timberline, but you're in Sammamish. All right. So I also want to give a shout out for Vote Sammamish. Vote Sammamish is a Facebook page where we have conversations about topics, kind of a online forum. Not everybody's participating in it, but there's some really good information. So if you're online and you're interested in seeing what's going on, that's a great place to look. If you're not signed up for that and you're on Facebook, that would be a great recommendation. Also, the Sammamish Comment is here tonight, and they're going to be covering this story tonight. So thank you, and you can access that at sammamish.news. So tonight's event, just for clarity, nonpartisan, independent, impartial. What's in it for me and what's in it for all of us is we're bringing this as a service to our community so that we can learn about the different issues that we're facing and how our candidates stand on it, so we as residents can make an intelligent decision and vote for somebody that's going to represent our interests. And not all of us are going to agree, which is fine. That's what makes the world go round. But now we can align ourselves with the candidate that represents us best. I'm happy to see so many people here because what it tells me is that you're passionate about your community, that you care about your community enough to take your, 2 hours of your time away from your family, away from whatever it is to be here, and I thank you for that. So let's give everybody a round of applause. So this impacts our lifestyle, it impacts our commute, it impacts our property values. So we should all care, and I'm glad that you guys have taken the time to be here. And for any of your neighbors that didn't have an opportunity to be here, please share what you learned tonight. All right, so the agenda tonight, here's how it's going to work. We're going to give the candidates 2.5 minutes each for a total of 15 minutes to do an opening statement. It could be whatever you want. It could be your top priorities, whatever it is that you want to convey to your constituents. We're going to have some prepared questions. Dave's going to kick it off. But and that's going to be up to 90 seconds, a minute and a half. We really want to hear more from our residents, so we're going to ask our residents to line up over here. And we've got a microphone that we'll just pass. So if you have a question, after I'm done, you can start lining up over here. And Celia, waving, beautiful Celia over here, is going to help coordinate and cue you up. You probably all got a handout. It's got the agenda on it. It's got our candidates. There's areas for notes. If anybody needs a pen, we have pens out in the back, so we can help you out with that. But after a while, it gets a little bit confusing, so if somebody says something that you like or don't like, make a note of it, and then that'll help you remember later. So we tried to make that convenient. We also have a couple of the concepts, like concurrency and so on. I've been to several meetings, and it took me a while to really understand some of the lingo, and we tried to just make that easy for you so that you can get up to speed very, very quickly. I'm going to read the ground rules very quickly. So please turn off your cell phones. Don't be that guy. We have all candidates included in the forum. Thank you all for participating. Candidates will maintain a modicum of professionalism and will not interrupt other candidates. This is less against you, but more of what we see nationally. We're going to have the candidates pull a number from a hat to determine an order of their opening statements. Whatever order you start in, we'll go backwards for the closing statements, just to be fair. And then we're going to go round robin so that everybody has equal chance to speak. So the moderator will use rotation, so that not the same person's always first. Closing statement will be in reverse order. Opening statements will be 2.5 minutes. Closing statements, 90 seconds. Response to any prepared or resident questions will be 90 seconds. Where is Lori? My timekeeper, right there. So Lori, thank you, Lori, is going to be the timekeeper, and she's going to hold up signs for 60 seconds, 30 seconds, and 0 seconds. And thanks for sitting closer, because now everybody can see that. All candidates will follow time limits and relinquish the floor specifically when commenting on other candidates or current council members. Candidates will be warned once. If a candidate does not respect time after a warning, they'll be skipped for the next round of questions. Again, that's less about you, but more about what we've seen in some other debates. No visual aids. Our moderator will be independent and objective. The moderator will and can request clarification from candidates as appropriate. We'll ensure each candidate gets equal time and will mitigate any issues. Residents with questions can line up over here. And before asking the question, we just ask for the resident to state their name and address and or just neighborhood. Okay, any questions? Celia? Okay, yes, if you physically have any physical limitations. Yeah.
Could you be a tiny bit louder?
Yeah.
Is this better?
How about if we do a test starting with Karen?
Hi. Good evening.
Ratuja?
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hi.
Good? Okay. If for whatever reason it starts to go bad, raise your hand, let us know, and we'll take a look at that. Thank you. All right. So without any further ado, first of all, are there any policemen in the crowd? Okay. Then I'm happy to present the Vice President of the Sahalli Homeowners Association and my partner in crime, and I say that lightly, jokingly, Mr. Dave Steele.
Everybody knows the ground rules. I am going to start by picking numbers out of a hat. We've all done that, right? And the numbers are in correlation with the way that the candidates are sitting. So first will be number 2. Number 2 is Kent, right?
Ken.
Yeah. So close. Close. Is it Kent? Yeah. Correct. We're going to start with number 2, and then we're going to go down the line depending on the numbers that I pick. All right. So the first thing is I would like you to spend
Good evening, residents of Sammamish. Thanks for coming. I had no idea how many people would be here. This is absolutely fabulous. So, and also thanks for the kind folks who organized this. It takes a little bit to get this together, and all the people who put it together, you know who you are, and thank you. Can you hear? Okay, okay. So, Sammamish is maybe the best place in the world to live, okay? And I don't say this lightly. I've traveled to every single state in the United States, and I've traveled all over the world. And I can tell you that we live in paradise. And sometimes it's gray, sometimes it's wet, but in my opinion, it's still paradise. Every single day that I walk out of my house, I take a deep breath of our clean, sweet air, and I'm just grateful to be living here. So no matter what happens with the back and forth tonight, I just want us to all keep in mind what an amazing place that we live and the amazing people we live with. So I want to mention that Sammamish is geographically unique in this area. As you all know, we live on a plateau, which is really an island here. And we have very limited egress on and off this island, okay? And although the isolation on the plateau has given us a great deal and a great place to live, it has exposed us to some unique problems. And so our roads are mostly still in the state that they were 20 years ago. They're difficult to improve, and as we never planned to be a large city. We have no direct access to freeways. We have limited transit options, and we will never see light rail. We have limited space for new schools, and our traffic is currently stuck at choke points. So this election really distills down to a simple question on how you look at our growth. One group is looking at a more urban Sammamish with thousands of new apartments scattered throughout the city. Now this may work for you or may not, but the problem with this is, along with that plan, there is no solution for the additional traffic and schools that this will bring, and the loads to our schools. I don't agree with this high-risk proposition, and I believe in stopping development. Good luck.
That means stop.
Thank you. It sounded like a submarine going down or something. There you go.
Thank you, Sahali Homeowners Association and Timberline for organizing this forum, and welcome citizens and residents of Sammamish. I especially want to acknowledge the young people that I saw in the audience taking time off and coming to this forum, so thank you for your civic engagement. Dinesh and I moved to Sammamish in 2002. This has been our home for the past 16 years. What brought us to Sammamish was the public schools, the green spaces, and a sense of community. As Ken said, Sammamish is a great place to be, and it continues to inspire me to be a better citizen and give back to my community. Since I've come here, I've always given back. I've been on the PTSA board, I've coached my son's soccer team, been a Girl Scout mom, and even today in that same spirit, I volunteer and serve on the Sammamish Planning Commission. I serve on the Sammamish Y board, and last year I was appointed to the Washington State's Women's Commission by Governor Inslee. Through these work, I've been able to do something that the residents of Sammamish really want. Through the Planning Commission, we were very happy to recommend the Urban Forest Plan and also the interim setbacks, which this council actually adopted. This was to preserve the character of our neighborhoods. Through the Sammamish Y board, it's extremely important that we take care of our kids and address the mental health issues, the health and wellness, and the anxiety that our kids face. That is something that I'm very passionate about and I would like to continue to work on. And on the Women's Commission, we continue to work on the health, safety, and economic opportunities for all women in Washington State. I also have experience in serving on nonprofit boards. So I know what it is to work with people who are volunteering their time and work towards a common good. I have knocked on more than 3,500 doors in Sammamish, and I actually can see some folks I've met while walking their neighborhoods. What I've heard from you is, first of all, you love living in Sammamish, but you've also complained about the traffic and the fact that even after 20 years, we do not have a transportation master plan. You're worried about the trees, but you love your sense of community and would want to see more. So I am running to protect the quality of life, the neighborhood character, but then also listen to you and build a welcoming community for all. My name is Rituja. I have an LLM from the University of Nottingham, and I look forward to chatting with you today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Christy Malcho is next.
So thank you. My name is Christy Melcho, and I'm seeking re-election to position number 2. When I ran for office 4 years ago for the seat I now hold today, I held the same values and had the same talking points. They have been guiding my time on the council. First, public safety. This is government's #1 job, and it goes far beyond just police and fire services. Things like sidewalks and bike lanes are part of our safety network here. 2, fiscal responsibility. It is our job to mindfully execute the dollars to which our taxpayers fund the government. 3, the trees and the environment. It's easy to stand and say you support them, but my actions and my votes show that my words are not hollow. My motion to support new development regulations gives trees a better opportunity to stay on development sites, and I have supported policies from water quality issues to those that help support fish habitat for our kokanee salmon. 4, clear communication. I have used every available resource to communicate out information to the constituents of Sammamish. I value your input and feedback, and I elevate your voices at the dais to make sure that you are heard. That is what representative government looks like. 5, our infrastructure. We cannot continue to grow in the manner that we have without providing the necessary infrastructure to support the growth. So when you hear that I am anti-growth, I am not. I am anti-doing nothing to support the growth, as we have historically done. 6, quality of life. Everything I've previously mentioned plays into the quality of life that we all value and what brought us here and keeps us here in Sammamish. 7, maintaining our character. Our character means something different to each one of us, but we all value the character to which we have here in Sammamish. It's why I moved here, it's why I'm raising my family here, and it is a unique one because we are on the edge of the urban growth boundary and we share things that are in common with both rural and urban infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is number 1, Karen Howe.
Hi, thank you for being here. My name is Karen Howe, and I'm running for position number 4. I'm your neighbor. I live in Deer Park, so not too far. I may have accidentally bumped into you, literally, in Safeway with my shopping cart. Or maybe I saw you at a PTA meeting. Or maybe I coached your kids in lacrosse. Go Eastside Eagles. In any event, what I'm trying to do, and the reason why I'm running, is because I have lived and volunteered here in Sammamish for nearly 30 years. So I'm invested deeply in this community, and the longer I stay here, the stronger is my commitment to the community. And what I want for all of us, is that we're able to take forward the lives and the childhoods that our kids had here, kind of the idyllic one, where they could walk past trees to get to school, get there safely, play out in a great park. I want to preserve and protect that and carry it forward for their kids and for their kids' kids. So I'm looking forward to planning for a wonderful, vibrant future, not just for us, but for the generations that follow us. You get what you plan for. And if you don't prioritize and plan, you won't end up where you think you're going to. So for me, in the face of change, my priorities are very, very clear. I will preserve and protect our trees, our natural spaces. I will invest in parks and make sure that they're available and sustainable to everyone in the community. I will leverage my King County experience and ensure that we work with regional partners to drive sustainable solutions forward. In addition to prioritizing safety and security, certainly in our neighborhoods, we need to fund and execute a prioritized transportation master plan. I've been a high-tech CEO. I've managed multi-million-dollar budgets. I'm used to making big decisions with bigger consequences. I make my decisions very transparent and very clear and show my work, basically. I'm also on the King County Youth Advisory Board. I'm a CASA, I'm a court-appointed advocate for abused and neglected children in the foster care system. I understand how to protect vulnerable populations. I would be very honored to earn your vote in November.
Perfect. Number 6, Karen McKnight.
Okay. Thank you, Sahali, for hosting this event. And I live right next door in Heritage Hills, so I had a very quick commute. I'm Karen McKnight, and I'm running for Sammamish City Council because I see the potential our community has to offer. We need leaders who are willing to listen. Sammamish has been my home for 39 years, and as a real estate broker, I help others make Sammamish their home too. We've seen the concerns of residents discounted too often. I promise to respect your voice and listen to our community's concerns. Sammamish is a growing city with important decisions ahead of us. We need leaders who will represent all of us and manage our growth in positive ways. I'm excited to bring my business experience, leadership as Sammamish Chamber of Commerce President, and my years in this community to City Council. I pledge to make my best decisions to protect our way of life and our environment, to protect our tree canopy, open spaces, water quality, and parks. The best way to do this is to direct much of our growth into the center of town so we can minimize our footprint, create more walkable spaces, and bike trails. I believe in making Sammamish a strong town, which means making our city financially strong by enhancing the services our citizens want. A hardware store, a movie theater, restaurants, and that increases our city income and quality of life. A strong town means more housing choices, so our children, seniors, police, fire, teachers, and local workers can live here. More services on this plateau will decrease car trips and create the place for a transit center so that our citizens can take commuter rides to the Northeast Marymore Light Rail by 2024. This will shift our traffic patterns and save you time for your family. Under my opponent's leadership, this council wasted over $1 million and 2 years counting cars before creating a transportation master plan. That's like looking for a solution before you know the problem. Growth is here, whether we like it or not. We are in a Washington state legally designated urban growth area. We can stick our heads in the sand, or we can create smart, visionary, managed growth to have the city we want. My agenda will get us there. Thank you.
And then before we have Mr. Kent Treen talk, I would say that if anybody would like to start getting in the queue for questions, we're going to have that right over here. And I'll give them up.
Thank you to Sahali residents, Sahali Country Club, Timberline residents for hosting the forum. My name is Sherwood Kent Treen. It sure would be nice if you call me Kent. And I'm running for position number 4. So right after I filed for the office, to run for office, my father-in-law passed away. And David taught me that things you value are worth doing right, and doing them right the first time. And David and I value family. We value our friends. We value education. We often talked about his legacy and what he would leave behind for his wife, for his 2 daughters, and for his grandchildren. I believe we must decide what kind of legacy we leave behind. I have a vision for the city where humans and animals live together, where human habitat blends into nature. A vision where families come first. A vision where we respect our friends and neighbors. I have a vision of habitat and homes that remain for my feathered friends in the form of trees. That the understory is restored so my friends, the deer, can graze as they pass through our properties. I have a vision of restoring the kokanee to the waters of Lake Sammamish. A vision of grandchildren seeing black bears come and eat the berries near the streams and the lakes. You ask, how do we create this? Sahali. This high heavenly grounds. Well, the council you elect needs to strengthen the comprehensive plan to reflect this vision. The council you elect needs to adopt code amendments that match the vision of a pretty good comprehensive plan that we have. The council you elect needs to establish design standards. So what is envisioned is what developers must build their best for the next generation. The results of a clear vision, bold leadership, hard work will create a beautiful place to live, where families enjoy open spaces, where the next generations of students will continue to attend top-rated schools, a city that is well planned, an example to the rest of the region of managed growth.
Everybody here okay? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kick off with a question here since we don't have this tonight. Sure. Could you from right on up? Jump in later. Microphone. Hello.
Hi, my name is Vivek, and I live in Timberline for the last 3 years. So firstly, thank you everyone. I think you guys are going to get a lot of tough questions, hopefully. But I don't want to overlook the fact that you guys are doing something that I am not, which is serving the community. So thank you for that. Thank you for volunteering your time. My challenge is twofold. When I hear y'all, I see everybody saying the same thing. You want the trees, you don't want the traffic, you either don't want the development or want to control it. So I don't know how to choose. The second question is, there are folks who are here who are on the council. So what's prevented you from getting this done over the last couple of years that will change if you get re-elected? So, and where I stand is that yes, like I'm hoping many of us, I think there's a lot of traffic. I can quantify that. It's gone up from 15 minutes to 30 minutes for me in the last 3 years. I see a lot of growth. And I'm really concerned on how some of the decisions are taken on how communities are growing, the number of new houses coming up, the whole place beyond YMCA, how that's going to be converted into a commercial establishment and more housing in the town center. Thank you. And I'm just not clear on how this helps the community and why it's taking so long to get a plan in place. Thank you.
Karen, you want to take that?
Okay.
No, I'd like a couple of them to respond. Thank you.
Okay.
I think the difference is, I think really most of us want to maintain the character of Sammamish, but the way we get there is very different. So I want to say that I'm endorsed by Washington Conservation Voters and the Sierra Club, and I've been to a lot of classes on how to build a very strong, environmental friendly city. And Washington Conservation Voters, the Puget Sound Regional Council, and the realtors' housing issues all say the same thing. What they say is you want to have a center area where you have mixed use, where you have housing and retail and shops and places to gather. That gives us a place to have transit, and the way that we help our transportation is to increase transit so some people can make choices to use our transit systems. We need to get busy right now and create transit systems so that we can get to the light rail effectively in 2024. That's coming right up. There's also a 1,400 stall park and ride 5 minutes from here down the hill. It's going to be at Marymore. And we as a city, we're closer to that than most of Redmond. So there are things coming in place. There's a park and ride at the north end of Sammamish that are going to help us move some of the cars off the roads. Bike trails help that. Our East Lake Sammamish Park Trail helps it. And so that's how we improve transportation while we improve the feeling of our city and maintain how our city feels.
So thank you, Vivek, for your question. I think your question was a long one, and it had, I think, multiple issues in that. I'll first talk about the traffic, and like you said, traffic patterns. It used to take you 15 minutes, now it takes you 25 minutes. I commute to work every day. My husband commuted to Microsoft for many, many years, and my brother-in-law still does, to the north end of the city. I commute south to Costco. I work at Costco, so my commute is not that bad. But I hear you. I think traffic has gone up, and what has happened is Sammamish, again, is every day we have 21,000 people going out of the city to work. That is a big issue, and we have to work with other cities. We have to work with Redmond, because for many times you might be going down to Sahali Way and just getting stuck at 202. When I go out to Issaquah, I am stuck at Issaquah. So we really need to, it's not just a Sammamish problem, it's a regional problem. We need to work with Redmond, we need to work with Issaquah, we need to work with our congresswomen. I actually went and asked, has Sammamish made any requests for federal funding for improving our infrastructure? And the answer was no. So we really need to invest in our infrastructure. We need to alleviate the traffic, and it starts with creating this transportation master plan. And I hope many of you have been to the workshops where we're trying to understand what projects should we work on, what is most important to our community. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. So you had a couple of different questions in there, and the first one was how to choose when we sound alike. I would suggest that you check the Public Disclosure Commission. That is where you are going to find campaign donations and where you will find that all of my donors are coming from the city of Sammamish. They are residents here. The only outside organization that I have that has donated to my campaign so far is the King County Police Officers Guild. When we sound alike up here, you might be able to look at the PDC and find that there's another story behind the scenes of the PDC. So it's just checking there. You asked what is preventing me from getting things done since I'm the only sitting council member up here. Nothing, frankly, except for that the council as a singular person, I can't do anything. It takes the majority. And for the first while on the council, I ended up on the minority side of voting on certain issues. And then 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, the balance of the council changed. And I was able to finally get at the traffic issue, and I was able to look at concurrency, which is how we measure the impact of new development trips out on our roadways, and we've changed that. We gave so much capacity to places you cannot drive a car. For example, on the East Lake Sammamish Parkway, 50% of our available capacity was in a place you couldn't drive a car, including on the trail. We've taken that all away, so we are now more accurately measuring the impact of new development trips. It's been stated that we're going to have a transit system. We don't have that jurisdiction. That is not our agency. That is King County Metro, and we are working with Metro and Sound Transit to improve and bring as many services as we can. But we do not have the money, or King County Metro does not have the money to realize their 2040 plans.
Okay, Ken?
Yeah, twofold question. So,
First thing I wrote down was, you want to know who to vote for? Look at the money, follow the money. All right? Just look at where the donations are coming from. How do you manage growth? I heard as one of the other things. What are we going to do to manage growth? My wife Debbie was Former Mayor Bothell worked on the Growth Management Act. The Growth Management Act is a management tool. The biggest tool within that Growth Management Act is concurrency. With concurrency, we can control growth. You want me to add, I got 60 seconds here? Sweet. So the other thing I was just, would add on to that too is that we can manage growth, and we do need to slow it down to the point where we can actually put in the infrastructure that we need to.
Okay, Ken.
Come on. Okay. So I'm going to really concentrate on the main point that I see here, and that is, why are our roads failing? They're not failing because of transit. We've been working on transit for as long as I've been here, and I've talked to numerous council people in the past, ex-mayors, ex-council members, who have emphatically stated they begged and begged for more transit. So I think it's a little disingenuous to say transit is going to fix our problems. What's going to fix our problems is not having as many cars on the road. Again, I'll mention what I mentioned before. We are an island. We have 3 ways to the south and 3 ways to the north to get off of the plateau. These ways are all 2-lane rural roads. They are overloaded, and technically they are failing. And yet, what differentiates me from my opponent is, my viewpoint is, when you have a problem of this magnitude, when you have roads that are failing and traffic that's getting worse and worse, you do not advocate to put more and more development in place. You don't advance plans to put thousands of new apartments spread throughout the city. You don't advance that plan. What you say is, let's stop development, let's fix the traffic problem, let's find out how to fix the roads. If we can do that, great, let's develop more. But you don't make a problem worse by continuing to develop until you fix the problem.
So some of you may have remembered me from when I ran 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, it was traffic and trees. 2 years later, it's traffic and trees. I understand the confusion. We can sound a lot alike. I would suggest that listen to what we're really saying here. In that, look at our backgrounds, go to our websites, and go to our Facebook pages, and see how we spend our time in terms of what we give back to the community, where we spend our efforts. For example, I'm president of Sammamish Friends, which is a conservation group that builds community here in Sammamish. And in continuing to invest my time here and growing conservation and sustainability here. In terms of the traffic issues, yeah, it's not awesome. And I have to tell you the sad truth that you may not be able to buy your way out of it. You could spend hundreds of millions of dollars to put in huge roads that you don't actually really want. And they could fill actually with traffic. And you won't get there any faster because you run into a choke point in Redmond and then in Issaquah. So it's a regional problem. We don't solve it by ourselves. We do solve a lot of it, frankly, with transit and with smart transportation systems, even smarter, more intelligent systems than we have today to manage our cars intelligently. There are things we could do today that would make roads safer and have better throughput. Adding transit is a plus and something we should absolutely start and plan for, because we are going to have autonomous vehicles at some point. Pretending that's not going to happen is not realistic and not looking to the future, which is where, whether we like it or not, we're all headed.
Thank you very much. So we have a question from the floor.
Hi, my name is Amy Barley. I live in Timberline, and I have lived in Sammamish since 1993. I want to make this very simple. I think we all know what the big issues are, so I want to get very specific. I'd like each of you to answer, if possible, if you attended the City Council meeting on May 23rd, and if you attended the City Council meeting on August 20th, and if you did or did not, I'd like to know how you would have voted for the motion that was put on the table that basically upheld the level of concurrency. Therefore, the additional housing at City Center would not be built until the infrastructure issues were addressed. So I'd like to know if you were at those meetings and how you would have voted on that issue. I have the motion if anyone needs to hear it.
Does everybody understand the question? Okay, let's just run down.
Mr. Chair.
starting with,
We don't understand the question, maybe you can.
Okay, so basically, she's asking a very specific question about managing the growth with, what is it, help me here, Christie, it's B over C, right?
I can clarify.
Okay.
So on the May 23rd meeting, there was, yeah, and I'm new to figuring all of this out, but I finally have gotten engaged enough to figure it out a little bit, so bear with me. The previous, what was called moratorium on building, which I guess wasn't truly a moratorium, was up, and we needed to revote whether or not they continue to uphold a certain level of traffic and amount of time. We call it concurrency. And there was a heated discussion. There was a split vote on whether or not, if they maintained it, it put the city center growth on hold until the city addressed some of the issues that we need taken care of: traffic, school, roads, safety, and it was a split vote, and it was passed that we would uphold that and not do any further building other than what's already in the pipeline, and there's plenty in the pipeline. To maintain a status quo as opposed to move forward and building. And the reason I asked about the second meeting is that after that vote was passed, that they would maintain a status quo and a certain V over C or whatever it's called. At the following meeting prior to that, it was announced by the city staff that all of a sudden the traffic issues through some study had changed significantly, and now 450 some odd homes would be built in the city center. So it's just really, I'd like to know if they went to the meeting, and if they didn't, why I went to the meeting, and they're running. And so, you know.
Okay, so let's start with the mayor, because obviously you were in the meeting, right?
I was.
Or work there, I'm sorry?
She was at the meeting.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, so yes, I
you
was
were
at the meeting. So the motion was not relative to a moratorium, just for clarification. It was a motion relative to upholding the volume to capacity ratio that we adopted as a two-part piece of concurrency. Again, concurrency is how we measure the impact of new developments trips on our existing infrastructure. So the volume is very simple. It's the number of cars that pass over a counter strip that the city puts down on the roadway. The capacity is somewhat, I alluded to this earlier, we had a capacity number for every foot of sidewalk, shoulder, bike lane, regional trail. We gave 580 cars a pass for every foot. The regional trail down there on the parkway is 12 feet. The shoulders are 5 feet. You can start doing the math and realize how many cars we let go down East Lake Sammamish Parkway before we triggered concurrency. So I did vote on that, and I voted to uphold it, because those were both of we had level of service at intersections, volume to capacity ratio. We had both of those before. We just altered them and made them more accurate so that they're an accurate reflection of the impact of the new trips that are generated on our roadways.
So Karen, how, let's start.
Sure. So first, was I at the meeting? I was at least one of the meetings, and I watched the second one probably online. And I would have voted for the current model for a couple of reasons, or the one that's most currently in force. Because we have spent an awful lot of time and an awful lot of money with really good people and our own city staff, who, by the way, are actually really good people, to work on this concurrency model. So yeah, I wasn't going to go against what they had recommended, because they are the experts, and it did make sense, and I understood what the goal was here. And it was to try to allow us to give a little bit of breathing room, an opportunity to try to catch up, if at all possible, with our traffic concerns. What I would like to add to that, though, is I would like to add transit as something that is also measured, and to get credit for adding that transit. So it's not just capacity, it's modality. What are the modalities that we could add to our concurrency model that actually upgrade it and make it better and stronger? It's the way that Redmond does it. So that's something that I would suggest that we could improve on. And I can end there.
Okay.
Okay, so for those of you who want just a little more depth, the V over C numbers that we're talking about 1.1 and 1.4. What do they mean? 1.1 means 110% of volume compared to capacity. So when you rate a road at 1.1, what you're saying is that road won't fail until it actually reaches 110% of its given capacity. It's a very full road. The VRC that was passed, which I would have voted for if I was there, was 1.1 for the whole section and 1.4 for small specific areas. What was proposed and what wasn't passed was 1.5 and 1.7. What this means is for the road to fail, it would have had to have 150% of its given capacity occurring, or 170%. Imagine 170% of its capacity before it failed. That was not passed. The 1.1 and 1.4 were passed. So one other point on this, this was applied to specifically Sahalli up here, okay? Sahalli was put through this concurrency, it failed initially. It then came back when they ran it again. Sahalli has now passed. These 419 units that passed, only 50 trips off plateau were attributed to 419 units. So 419 units worth of people going off the plateau only made 50 trips. Does that make sense?
Can I ask a clarifying question? The August 20th date that you stated there,
August 20th. So there was a meeting.
was that the special meeting that was
the-
called?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I was at that meeting.
Were you at the May 23rd?
I was also at the May 23rd meeting on the concurrency model that they were talking about. And the reality is, I waffle a little bit because I probably would have gone with the compromise and gone with the 1.2 on videography and 1.4, which is what was passed. But the reality is I live on East Lake Sammamish Parkway, and I had a thought that it really needs to be 1.0, which is capacity. So I may not have voted for it in that I would want it to be stricter. And here's the reason why. It became pretty clear to me, and it has now become very clear from the August 20th meeting, that developers were going to step into the city and they were going to dump all the traffic in their models down onto East Lake Sammamish Parkway because it's been exempt, right? And so that way they can just keep moving all their traffic off the top of the hill for as long as they want to down onto East Lake Sammamish Parkway. I live on East Lake Sammamish Parkway. I don't want that traffic coming there. And half of it and most of it isn't really even going to come down there. It's going to go off 228. It's going to come down Sahalli Way. So we might have missed the boat on that one.
Patricia, what do you think?
I was at the May 23rd meeting and I was online on the August 20th meeting. And as part of Planning Commission, the process, the way it works is, typically the City Council has a work plan, they have an agenda, and they send it off to the Planning Commission to work on it. It was a little different with the transportation element, but I was on the Planning Commission and we voted for the VOC that was suggested by the council. So I voted yes on that and I will vote yes again. Thanks.
Karen?
Okay. Let's see, several things. I'm not real clear which meeting was what, so I'm going to talk in general about several of the meetings. One basic problem I think we have is we totally focused on the concurrency without having done a transportation master plan. The reason that is so important is once we start working better with our regional entities like Issaquah and Redmond, and with Sound Transit and King County Metro, to help with our transit solutions. See, every organization that's talking about how to improve traffic is talking about using transit. And we in this city do not even have a transportation master plan. So if you don't have a master plan and you work at roads piecemeal, how are you going to have a full solution? We've got to have that, so when we have more development, we have roads that can go through. There's development sitting in our city that are sitting where roads could have been. The other thing I want to mention is one of the things that happened is the council pushed this transportation plan clear to the end, and they have to do a transportation improvement plan. The concurrency was set so low, the capacity set so low that it actually forced Sahalee to fail, and we're looking at this one road instead of the full picture. And also, they were so late at the deadline that if they hadn't passed that, they would have lost $9 million in total grants and $20 million in future grants.
So how would you have voted if you were at that meeting on the council?
Which meeting is, I'm not
The
sure.
May 23rd meeting,
What was that? If you ever see.
the one that we
To set the
I gave
capacity.
you the whole.
I would have voted for the capacity to be higher. Because it was artificially low, 950 cars on Sahalee Way, when it's now taking 1,300, is very low.
Okay, I'm going to throw in a prepared question here, and it is as follows, and I'm going to go backwards, so Ms. McKnight, you are going to get it.
Hello. I'm going to start with a prepared question, and Ms. McKnight is going first. Okay.
What's the difference between you and your opponent?
I'd like to say the difference between me and my opponent is I think I have a more visionary view. I think she gets stuck in the weeds instead of a lot of times looking at the big picture and really stuck in the details. And also not respecting the staff and the professionals that work in our city. And I would definitely be more respectful of our staff's work and follow their advice. And I think so a lot of it would be style, looking at the bigger picture, and then making decisions that encompass more of the bigger picture. And we keep mentioning the Transportation Master Plan. That is so crucial to knowing how we're going to do the whole transportation plan for the city. And Sahalee Way was forced to fail because they were looking at these different roads piecemeal, and they set the capacity so low. So once we look at the full plan, we can start factoring in, okay, we've got light rail down the road, how are we going to have some commuter buses to get people there? We're going to have other smaller buses taking people off and down the plateau. The reason busing hasn't worked is these great big buses, King County Metro, isn't going to take these big buses all over the city when they're not full. So we need different kinds of solutions, and King County Metro is now being very creative in different parts of this area.
So we're going to do this a little bit different. So when somebody makes a statement, I'm going to ask the person they're running against to go ahead and make their statement next. Okay, so this is Kristen.
Okay, so the difference between myself and my opponent, I think the devil is in the details, and I'm proud to get down into the weeds, literally and figuratively. I have gone out and measured roadway widths in opposition to what staff presented the city and proved that they had the wrong widths listed, which was giving artificial capacity to our roads. Quality of life here in Sammamish is my focus, and it's not just about growing, it is about truly managing the growth. I have heard repeatedly that we forced Sahalee to fail. No, we recognized that it was failing. And as far as staff goes, I started my venture on this to become a council member because staff gave away my neighborhood's dedicated open space in a landslide hazard area over Ebright Creek, which is a kokanee salmon-bearing stream, in order to let a developer build on it. I came in not trusting staff. I have gained new respect and staff and respect for staff, but I do question it. I do not think I was hired for this job just to complacently sit at the dais and take what is fed to me. I take it and I learn and I dig so that I can give you the best results.
So, Ratuja, would you like to tell us what the difference is between you and your opponent?
Sure. Like I said, we have raised our family here in Sammamish. I've been in Sammamish since 2002. My kids have gone to local schools. I was a PTSA treasurer at Challenger Elementary. I've always given back to the community. Today, I work at Costco as an IS manager, and I have great experience, and I take a lot of inspiration from working for the fantastic company called Costco. And I'm sure most of you love to shop there, so thank you. With Councilmember Hornish leaving, actually, I will be the only person with a law degree on the council, so I bring that expertise to the podium as well. And the main thing is, I have experience with policy. One of the biggest things that a council member is supposed to do is create policy, long-term policy for our residents and our citizens in our community. With me serving on the Planning Commission, going through the details, practically shadowing the work that the council currently does, I have that experience of working on policy and creating long-term policy that protects the quality of our life and our neighborhood character. Like I said, I also serve on the Sammamish Y Board, and we have implemented so many programs for our teenagers, for teenage leadership, and that is what I would like to do. So my work speaks for itself, and I would like to continue to do that. I also am a great listener. One of the things that I've done as part of running for office is actually go and knock on your doors. And I have many friends in this room who have knocked with me, so I go out, reach out to the people, and talk to them.
Okay. Ken, you're up.
So my opponent speaks about policy. The question is, do you have the right kind of policy? Okay? If your policy is advocating for putting thousands and thousands of apartments spread throughout the city, I don't think that's the right policy. Look up when you get a chance sub-area plans and homegrown. These are policies that the Planning Commission has been working on and has voted on and approved that literally put 12 different developments of high-density housing spread throughout the city. The downside of this, besides having an apartment building in your neighborhood, is that there is no movement toward where that traffic is going to go. Where are all those people going on the road? There's not movement there. Another thing that we may want to look at is that there was an interview done with my opponent, and when she was asked about concurrency, her answer was, I'm not a traffic engineer. I don't know the difference going from 1.1 to 1.4 or 1.5 to 1.7. That's after a year and a half on the Planning Commission and running for office before. When would you going to figure that out? Okay. She also, again, advocating for apartments. We had the survey done in homegrown. 80% of our people in our community, 80% of our residents agree that new housing should fit and preserve the character of our communities. Thanks.
Okay, so we have the opportunity for Ratuja to make a rebuttal to the statement from Ken.
Thank you. I would like to clarify what Mr. Gamblin just said about the homegrown plan. What he is referring to was never passed. What he's referring to is a presentation that was done by a citizen in their vision of how their sub-area planning looks, and that was never passed by the Planning Commission. So this is what happens, you really need to understand and read the details of the documents which are passed. At nowhere was it suggested that we're going to put apartments throughout the city. So please go ahead and read that plan. And really, I am not a traffic engineer. I think I own up to that. And I will say that, the priority for me is really how do you get traffic to around the city? I think you don't care about if it's 1.1 or 1.10 or whatever. Really, what you care about is how do we make infrastructure improvements in our city that can help alleviate our traffic? And that is what our focus should be. So, Mr. Gamblin, I would really like you to go back and look at the homegrown plan. At nowhere did we suggest that apartments should be put everywhere in the city. What the plan is to really have that apartment and the growth and different kinds of housing, which actually, when I held the senior summit, there were so many seniors in the community who said, we actually cannot downsize. We would like to live in an apartment which is one side, or we would like to live in a house, and that is what is afforded in the town center. So please check your information.
Okay. So, Ken, how are you different?
I'm tall, bald, and a male. I'm a school teacher. I like, we're We're similar because actually she's an advocate and I work with at-risk students. So maybe the difference is that I go in every day and work with kids who are addicts, have anxiety disorders, and a number of other things. And my boss told me today I can't say any more about that because of special ed law. I've been running that program for 6 years. It's extremely successful. We've actually launched that into satellite programs within the high schools. We're doing our first pilot this year, and I'll be going out and training the staff for that. The other thing that we're very similar, we love the environment. Maybe the difference is that I have a piece of property that I'm restoring to wetland. The difference is that I've been out to Evans Creek Preserve and I've pulled blackberries with volunteers. Maybe the difference would be that, I've been out on the creeks on Wally's property, and with my wife, we planted willows in restoration projects with the Indian tribes and with private citizens. I love plants. I love it all.
Karen, how do you think?
Well, Kent, thank you. Actually, thank you, because we are both certified wildlife habitat stewards, because we went through the training together, and we do share a lot of things in common. And I'm thrilled that you're working with at-risk students. I am. I think that is awesome and extremely necessary. So thank you for that work. Where we might also separate somewhat is in our experiences from a business point of view. As I mentioned before, I've been a CEO of a high-tech company. I've been a director within Microsoft and Microsoft Research. I sold a company to AOL. I have business experience. I understand big budgets. I know how to work with people. I know how to collaborate, form teams that are powerful, and get stuff done. I am outcome-driven, and I'm very focused on exactly doing what I said I was going to do and executing against that plan. So I'm a planner. My husband will tell you he hates it. But I find it very necessary and very soothing for me personally. So part of my thing as a CASA, working with foster kids, is I'm a mediator. And I think that what we really need on the council is somebody that can bring people together, that can bridge divides. You have a different point of view, you have a different point of view, mine might be completely different again. But I can find the common ground. I can work with you to find that piece, to bridge things together so that we can survive the process.
Sounds good. So we have another question from the audience.
My name's Nick. I live in Sammamish. Just real quick, how many of you guys use a car every day? How many of you use a bus every day? And as you look at the increasing people using cars versus using buses, it's not even close. More people are using cars as the days go by than using buses. So I use a car. I'm not going to use a bus once a transit station opens up. What have you said so far as it relates to congestion, as it relates to transit solutions? How's that going to help me?
So who would like to take that first?
Yeah, I get it. I do. Because when I work downtown, I take the bus. But I work in Bellevue now, and I don't take the bus. I take the car. But because if I took the bus, it would take me 90 minutes. So it's a crappy solution right now. We have to fix that part of it. I may never be able to pry this gentleman out of his car. He may be passionately in love with that car and unable to move from it. And I get it. But I'm not actually going to try to move you. I might try to move you over there 1 day a week. And you over there 2 days a week. And maybe someone over there is going to take a bike, ride down to a park and ride or a place to lock up the bike and take the bus to work. It doesn't take everybody to mass transit to make it work. What it takes is a few people that start to change very slowly over time their behavior and patterns so that they want to do that. And I gotta tell you, when I was at the park and ride meeting, talking about putting in the transit park and ride, those Metro people who were there, the Metro consumers of Metro, were passionate about their bus. And when I work downtown, I am passionate about my bus. I love my driver, and I love the people I sit next to on the bus. So that's why we have to be a big, hairy, huge, humongous collective of Bellevue and the entire east side, and Issaquah and Redmond, to stand up to Seattle so that we get our fair share of the transit that we owed and that we deserve.
Okay, so I'm going to ask another question here in the middle of your question while the sun is blaring straight into my eyes. Welcome to Sahali, right? So there's no way we can increase the road capacity to more roads, right? So maybe you could rephrase your question in the sense of what would you expect from your city council as far as something that would help you?
Yeah, well, Councilmember Malchow said it best. It's not really going to be up to the council as to how the money's spent. It's going to be up to the people who run the mass transit system. So I don't know how I would address that question.
I'm going to let the mayor respond to that.
Yeah, King County Metro and Sun Transit have their own budgets, and they're the ones that are providing mass transit. But there is a very easy way, I think, to answer your question, which is mass transit's not going to be a viable solution for everyone. It's not a viable solution in my household either. But by advocating for more bus service, what we are doing is helping other people who can take mass transit to get out of their car and into the buses, which does help you out because now there's fewer cars on the road. So what we need is express bus service. At the last forum, my opponent said we don't need express bus service, but that's what I hear from the community. We don't have express bus service right now. We have frequent service, but the buses are largely empty because people have to go to the Issaquah Highlands Park and Ride to get their express bus to get in there. So they're not getting on there. They're getting in their single occupancy car. They're driving to a park and ride that is outside of the city of Sammamish to get that express bus. And it saves them 45 minutes to get their single occupancy car. That's not helping us out. It's helping I-90 out. It's helping Issaquah out, but it's not helping us out. So we are advocating through the legislature as well to get the RCWs, which is state law, changed in order to allow the city to provide its own shuttle so that we can get people from within Sammamish down to the light rail station at Marymore, which is due to open in 2024. Again, same concept. The idea being is that if we can get people out of their single occupancy vehicle because light rail is something that works for them, that gets them out of their car, it's fewer cars on our roadway, and that benefits all of us.
Okay, I think we dealt with that question reasonably. Let's have another one.
Hi, I'm Nancy Anderson. My husband Chris Anderson and I live in High Country. We live at 26657 Southeast 31st Street. And that's in the southeast corner of our city. We've lived there for 23 years. I served on the Planning Commission a few years ago, and I had the great honor of doing that. I know many of these people, although some of them don't know me and don't know Chris, but we watch every single meeting, and being 23 years in the city, meaning we were in a community that was part of the newly formed city of Sammamish when it was incorporated. My husband, as a matter of fact, volunteered to participate in the incorporation efforts. So I sound like a little ungrateful guest because here I'm in the, this was put on by two communities, and I really appreciate that. But I was wondering if the candidates could address the following question, and that is, how are you going to address the needs of the entire city, not simply certain communities that are very vocal at city council meetings, and often you all live in those communities. It's interesting because years ago, in 2015, I went to public comment, spoke at city council meetings, and expressed concern about traffic and about the loss of trees and all that. And I had a couple of council members then come up and say, and by the way, on the side was going on the Klahani annexation issue. And so we had been attending meetings regarding that as well, even though our community was already part of the city of Sammamish. But after public comment, I had some wonderful city council members come up to me and say, welcome to the city. And it's like, well, we've been part of the city since its very beginning. So that's the nature of my question, and even if because we've got other questions coming up. Each of you can't address it. I ask that in future forums or online, you address this question for our community. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's have a couple people address that question. We'll start with, okay.
Thank you, Nancy, for your service and volunteering at the Public Planning Commission. I really appreciate that. You're right, I live in Klahani, and I think sometimes Klahani also feels that we are a new part of city. I think having a comprehensive view of what the city really wants is very important. This brings back to me a story which, when I was door knocking, I met 97-year-old Mr. Gross, and he being 97 years old and having through a lot of life experience, I asked him what words of wisdom or advice he had for me, and he said, always speak for the ones who don't have a voice. And that has been my guiding principle. And between that and doing the right thing, which my work values teach me, I think it's really important to listen to all the voices, really listen to what we're hearing from public sentiment as well. We get a lot of surveys that are done by the city, and for people, safety is very important. Important is schools are important, and making sure that the quality of life is very important. What concrete steps I would like the city to do is actually have more community programming. I think we are a city of neighborhoods, and I would like to see more community programming happen at the city hall where it brings people together. Maybe have a mini festival of cultures, for example. We are a beautiful, diverse community, but we don't see each other. And we try to do that through the Y, but I would like the city to take leadership on that. The other thing I would like to do is maybe have a HOA roundtable where we invite all the HOAs from the city and have them sit together and converse about the issues they want.
I'd just like to add, we've been suffering communication-wise. We've not had a communication director. We now have an amazing new one. She's created a tool called Sammamish Connect that I'm going to work with the city to just do a blitz to make people more aware of it so we can communicate there. I was also thinking it would be really nice I know the city is doing forums on different issues, like the Klahani Park. They went out and did some workshops out there. And I know Trollsacks in your neighborhood, way out southeast, I do understand that you don't feel connected. And so it might be good for several council members to come to your different HOA meetings and have a forum where we can talk about some of the things that concern you.
How about Kim? Would you like Kim? With a K-E-M.
Okay. Well, I go to almost every meeting, or I watch almost every meeting, and I think there are several issues that affect everybody in the city equally. Okay, everybody pretty much here raised their hand when someone asked who rides their car every day. Everybody raised their hand. It was fascinating that nobody raised their hand when they said bus. I was surprised at that. But so I feel that by serving on the council, I will be serving everyone. I will never exclude anyone. I will never not listen. There's always emails available to talk to council people, council members. You can talk to them individually. You can talk to them as a group. You can go to meetings. So if for some reason you feel you're not having your voice heard or your issues looked at, there really honestly is an open forum that you can go at any point, go before city council meetings. The council members are almost there, always there early. I know for a fact that every single council member is more than happy to have coffee with you. Reach out to them, talk to them, go talk to the public officials that work at the city. They're also willing to work with you. So if anybody feels they're not being heard, or they're being marginalized, or their problems and issues aren't being addressed, all you have to do is raise your hand. I guarantee that people will listen to you.
Okay, and then Kent?
Yeah, I'll go back to my vision. I think the vision for the city is about for everyone, right? So regionally, if you look at, okay, you've got Issaquah on one side and Redmond on the other, Rural outside, and we got a lake on the other side. So there's the city. And regionally, we're a bedroom community. So the reality is how do we help all the needs of the people that are in the city is We need to continue to grow that vision that we're a bedroom community, right? And so we have to put in and establish that our comprehensive plan is what we want it to be, that it actually is that vision, and then adjust the codes, amend the codes, so that there aren't loopholes, so that developers can come in here and just go and build. So that's how we help all the needs. Then we can save some money and build some more parks, connect the trails, have open spaces, and if we put more buffers in, we put tree retention, well, we have those already in place, right? We'll see the results of that when that comes down the road. So the council, current council, is working on taking care of the needs of everyone in the city. Well, except maybe the developers. They're not gonna like us very much, right? They're not gonna like me very much, that's for sure.
Thank you very much.
So right now, it seems like we have a split council on the town center issue.
Can you say who you are?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Val Surrey. I live in Timberline Ridge. I've been there 14-ish years, about 3 months before selling it. So right now, it seems like the council, current council, is split on the town center issue. About four don't want it right now, and 2 don't within conjecture, and 3 do not. And when I look at the 6 of you, it seems like it's pretty evenly matched for every one of these positions. One of you supports it, and one of you less so. Many of the council meetings have gotten a little bit feisty between these 2 different sides of the issue. There's been some Facebook comments that have gotten kind of feisty between these 2 sides. So I'm wondering, if you guys are elected, how are you going to work with a person who really, really, really doesn't agree with you?
Well, who wants to take that?
I'll take it.
I'll take that. We are always going to have disagreements and discussions, and actually, I look at those as catalysts to getting a better solution. I am not conflict adverse, which my husband will tell you in spades. So I enjoy, actually, the ability to have a civil, respectful conversation with the facts, or as the facts as we know them, to just lay it down about, okay, so what's our share, what can we agree on, and what is the shared vision that we can work towards? So I fully expect that there's going to be disagreement, and town center could be a perfect one, to just use as an example. I think that many of us actually would like to see some kind of a town center of some kind. And what that looks like is in different people's heads and different kinds of visions. And the trick is, how do you bridge that divide? How do you bring people together to say, well, this is what it has to have as a bare minimum, some services. I want to be able to get a screwdriver here on the plateau and not have to leave the plateau. Well, if that's kind of and you can take the screwdriver either way too, by the way. There's different kinds of screwdrivers. So it works, it does work. So my thought is that if we already know that what the outcome is going to be, we're going to probably have something there, then it's just what do we want it to be and how do we march to get there?
Okay, Chrissy, you want to go?
Yes, please, thank you. We do have a split council relative to the concurrency methodology, and so it's not necessarily a split on town center specifically. In fact, the city council has taken more than one vote in support of the town center. It's how we get there. I don't know if that's me or the mic. Okay. And my timer is still Anyway, it's very difficult when we are very passionate about certain issues, and there has been name calling up at the dais, but I challenge you one time to find when I have been one of those people that has done any name calling or used derogatory language at the dais. I don't do that. I try very hard to run a meeting. It's more challenging since I'm a council member and a mayor at the same time. I'm always the last one to talk, and I have to try and keep some semblance up at the dais. Facebook is a whole nother story where it does get very nasty out there. I try and stay on the high road. Again, I challenge you to find a post where I have gotten super nasty with any one of my council members or any constituent, regardless of their views.
Okay, Karen?
Okay. I have a lot of history in my background in my business and building a real estate office from 14 agents to 123. There's a lot of disagreement in those kinds of offices because we're all independent contractors. But what I want to say is I have a track record of building consensus, and I really value being in an environment where there's a high clash of ideas and with respect. And I also like to look for the common ground to find, what do we have in common so that we can move forward on that part. And what I've not liked seeing this year is there's been a 4-block voting group on almost every single issue on the council. And I would work really hard to not have that, to find consensus, to find ways where we can agree so we can negotiate what we have in common.
Okay. Do you feel like you have your question answered?
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So the reason I'm going to jump in like this, time is starting to get short, and what I want to do is by a show. Sorry about that. I usually don't have to use those. Okay. Time is starting to get short. I want to make sure that we use this time as best as we can. So I'm going to do a show of hands thing. Okay. How many people in the room would like to talk more about Sammamish Way? Okay. Great. Okay. How many people in the room would like to talk more about the city in general? Okay. And how many in the room would like to talk about town center? Okay, so what I'm finding out, and I think that everybody will agree with it, this is not a one-issue audience. Okay? So, let's have our next question.
Hi, I'm Sasa Kirkpatrick, and I've lived on the plateau here for about 35 years. And I like to vote for candidates that have the guts to stand up to unethical city staff if I don't know our new staff, but if it's anything like the last past. I would like to know which people would stand up to unethical people in staff and the development. I've got firsthand experience of this. I want to know if each one of you could tell me if you have the guts to do the right thing. Please.
Yeah, I got the guts to do the right thing. I got that.
I can answer, and thank you, Sasa. I think, you and I had a roadside conversation when I was walking in your neighborhood, and I think we talked exactly about this issue. For me, like I said earlier, I work for Costco, and doing the right thing is our motto, and that's how we live by. That's how I personally live by. I think, it's really important to stand up for your values and what you believe in, and do the right thing, even if it's the hardest thing for me personally to do. Doing the right thing is the only way to do. So I can assure you and everybody in the audience that yes, I will always do the right thing and stand up for our values, and and make sure that we are very transparent with everybody.
I'd really like to
Okay, so we need to be clear on what the city council is, what they do, and what they can't do. So the city council is like a board of directors, okay? City council doesn't have the ability to step in and look at a particular staff person and say, you're being honest and you're being not honest, and I want you here or I don't want you here. So the city council is the board of directors, and they have a city manager. We have a city manager, who's basically the president of the company. That is the person who runs staff. That is the person who will look at dishonesty or unethical behavior. I think what we more need to look at is our ability to have accurate facts to make decisions on, okay? If we don't get accurate facts from the staff as a council person, I have to go to the city manager and say, your staff's not giving me what I need, you need to fix that. If the city manager doesn't fix it, then we get a new city manager in place. So we need to be clear, we're not after staff, and I'm not blaming staff. When I talk about facts, and I'll just give you a quick fact here, and it just happens to be on the town center, on what we need to make decisions accurately. So the town center plan only accounts for 218 new students coming out over from 2,000 new housing units. Think about that. That's the fact that's given to us to work with. Do we believe that only 9% of the homes in the town center are going to put students into our school district? How do we make plans when we're having facts like that given to us? We need accurate facts.
Everybody else did?
I'd like
Okay. Do we have another question?
No problem. Okay, first I'd like to start with an appeal, and then I will read my questions so that I don't mess anything up.
Please identify yourself.
My name is Stephanie Rudat Stevens, and I am a Sahalee resident. I relocated here about 2.5 years ago. I'm a mom. I'm a COO. I build things. I also had a real estate license for about 15 years and built my own real estate firm. So we connect there, McKnight. First, as a co-moderator of Vote Sammamish, I please appeal to Ratuja and Karen Howe to join us. 4 other candidates have. We've been opened up there for, well, since June, so for a few months. We only have 2 months left until the election. The conversations are rich. Questions are heavily moderated. We don't tolerate ad hominem attacks. We are really encouraging thoughtful discourse, and we hope that you'll be there. Okay, now, after that pitch, a totally different topic. I want to talk about schools. I have 3 kids, and my youngest is 3, so he is especially affected by decisions made by this council, okay? Overcrowded schools fail our teachers and our students. Building homes before establishing a plan to expand infrastructure, which includes schools, to accommodate higher student population, to accommodate a higher student population puts our students and teachers at risk of a less than optimal experience. In fact, at-risk youths are especially marginalized when schools cannot keep up with city growth. What is your plan to address this vulnerability?
Okay.
I'd just like to make a comment. The schools they're totally separate from the council. I know that we can.
Only kind of.
Okay, we can coordinate with them, and they set their own budgets, and they're not able to build the schools till they have the number of students. So a lot of times they're planning ahead and buying land, and I totally understand the problem. It's been that way for 40 years, because we're a growing area.
Chrissy?
Thank you. Yes, schools is one of the things that I'm very, very concerned about, and it's part of that whole infrastructure thing. I want to talk numbers with you and impact fees. So yes, it is true that we do not, we have no ability to tell the school district what they do, but we do have control over impact fees. Impact fees are for only new residential developments. In the Lake Washington School District, multifamily residential units pay $624, that's it, per unit. In the Issaquah School District, $4,399. Just for comparison, a single family resident is going to pay $12,294 for an impact fee. 624, $12,294. It's a huge discrepancy, and that includes townhomes that are 3 bedrooms, turning out kids into the school districts that will impact in the exact same way a single family house has. I've already engaged staff. I am asking for staff to look at the ability of pulling out townhomes from impact fees so that they are paying the same impact fee, because if the developers are not paying the impact fee, you and I will when the school district comes back for you for a bond to build a new school. We have got to adjust the way we do it. We also do not need to discount by 50%, which is
exactly what we're doing right now. We do not have to do that. We've been told that over and over, and it is not true.
Okay, so point of clarification on that. So where's the decision point on that figure between Issaquah and Lake Washington School District? Who's making the decision?
It's based on student generation rates. It's a long
But
math
it's based
problem.
on who's deciding what the rate is?
It
Is it
is-
the school district?
The school districts are coming up with a rate, and then the city of Sammamish is discounting it by 50%. Why? We don't have to, because we were told that we had to, because King County, I was told over and over again, because King County said we had to. We've done a ton of research this summer, it's not true, and I've asked staff to revisit it. I would like to change how we do impact fees. We do not need to reduce it. The burden to build the schools is on the taxpayers' backs.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Look, teachers always fight for two things. I need more pay and smaller class sizes. Really, the only way to get smaller class sizes is reduce the population. Okay, we're not going to reduce the population of Sammamish, right? But we can control the growth and how fast it's growing. Bellevue, right on Belred Road, they tore down Sherwood. Oh, that's pretty funny. They tore down the Sherwood Center, and they put businesses on the bottom, apartments on the top. And the population of the school at Highland, 800 new students, right? So they tear it down, and now we're in a 2-year process of building a new school. Thank you, Bellevue, for doing that, displacing those students, displacing my program, right, of at-risk students who don't like change. So when you're talking about how do we control this, we got to start managing the growth that's going on in the city. That's how the council is going to address the schools. And then I like her idea about the impact fees. Let's get the 50% back.
Ken, what do you think?
Well, I'm not an expert in schools, okay? But it seems to me that we're simply talking about another infrastructure problem. The more bodies we add to an already crowded system, the incrementally worse the effect of each body is. Now, whether that body's sitting in a car or whether that body's sitting in a classroom, you have to be able to look at some point and accurately gauge what is the limit to these systems, okay? For infrastructure and for the roads, we've now created a concurrency, the oversee, that accurately shows the failures. We can do the same for schools. In fact, there are cities within the state of Washington that have made concurrency for schools part of their plan. They don't directly control it, but they do not allow further growth unless the schools are funded properly. So again, my idea to put out to you would be, we're on a plateau, we're on an island. We don't have highways next to us. We don't have unlimited land to build more schools with and more classrooms with. So we have to look very carefully at these systems and ways of measuring these systems so that we can control growth before it gets out of hand. And that's the main thing. You don't want it to get out of hand and then try to go fix it. You want to fix it first before it gets out of hand.
Okay. I'm going to ask a general question and ask all of you to respond to it. The state has what they call the Growth Management Act. The Growth Management Act is a requirement that everybody take their fair share of growth. Now, I don't know exactly what that means, but I rely on people that are on the city council to know what that means. I've heard some of the council, people running for the council state that we want to slow down growth, we want to stop growth, or whatever, okay? I would like everybody to give me their thoughts and give you their thoughts on handling the challenge of working under the Growth Management Act, which is basically what the state is requiring all of us to do. You see it in Redmond, you see it in Issaquah, and we're kind of in this bit of an island here, okay? So I'm going to start with the mayor because she's talking more about what is and has been, but then I'm going to ask everybody to respond to that, if you would, please.
Sure. So the Growth Management Act, and I think the middle word there is the key word, management. Not a mandate, it's management. And it does give us tools in the toolbox in order to make sure that we are keeping pace with our rate of growth. So we've talked about a lot about concurrency, and that is one of the tools in the toolbox that we have. And for 18 years, we had some policy in place that allowed basically for unfettered growth in Sammamish without requiring ourselves to do the work. We have a transportation improvement plan that we are annually required to adopt, and we do, and we fill it with projects. And for 18 years, we haven't done 70% of what we said we were gonna do in a 6-year period every single year. It has led to a lag in us keeping pace with the growth that we've had in the city. So the GMA is a tool, and we plan under it. We have to do a comprehensive plan, and we have to do that every 8 years. And that is what guides the city in terms of policy making for the future. So we are still operating under our current comprehensive plan from 2015, and we are creating policy based on that. But we have got to start executing some of the infrastructure projects that we have in it, which is part of the management part of the Growth Management Act.
Okay, Patricia, would you want to comment on that?
So like you mentioned, David, every city has to accept some kind of growth. And as you mentioned, Redmond and Issaquah, they have taken more growth targets. Sammamish is not that city. You know, we are a city, we are almost like an island, and we have to take what feels comfortable to our community. That also means we cannot build a wall around Sammamish and stop all growth. But it has to be managed, and it has to be smart kind of growth that is conducive to our communities, and it fulfills the needs of our communities. As I said before, we have so many seniors in our community who would like to downsize. We have single parents living in our city who do not want a big single family home. We need to have options for those families. And that is what it means to me by making sure that we have the character of our community, but we're also satisfying the requirements and needs for our citizens. So I would be in favor of accepting the least amount of growth. Make sure that we are investing, like Mayor Malchow said, the previous councils have not always fulfilled all the projects that are on the transportation improvement plan. We have lots of projects from way before. So we really need to make sure that we're putting our dollars to our priorities. If everybody's saying infrastructure is our first priority, let our city budget reflect that. Let our city budget be our values document in which we make sure we are putting the money where our real priorities are. And if transportation and traffic is that, let's do that first.
Okay. Karen McKnight, do you like growth?
No, what I want to say is I like to manage smart growth. And so I kind of have to echo part of what Rituj had said, is that we can't say we don't want no growth. We can't have policies that say no growth. Because we're part of, we're under the State Growth Management Act. The Puget Sound Regional Council will give each county numbers, and then we as a city negotiate with the county what we can take, what we'll have. So within that, though, as we take the growth, I want our comprehensive plan to be smart. And so the center of town, which is currently called the town center, is where we can put much of our growth, and we can have a different kind of housing. The 400 houses that were approved in the phase 1, it's 300 apartments, 113 townhomes, and only 10 single-family homes. So, and they do plan a senior center. So right there, that's our vehicle for helping create housing options, so we can have, our seniors live, maybe our firemen, our teachers, local workers. It gives us an opportunity to have some less expensive housing. And then the other thing, by doing that, by taking the growth that we need to take because of the GMA that we negotiate, if we can plan that so that we have going back to the transportation master plan, we need that to help fulfill some of what we need to do when we complete our comprehensive plan. So it all has to work together. We can't take it piecemeal. And I think this current city council has been spending a lot of time on traffic, which is important, but it's piecemeal without the full plan.
Okay. Kent?
Yeah, we do not need to take the growth. Don't buy, that's not true, all right? That is not what the Growth Management Act says. That is not even the intent of what the growth management was established for. That was passed by the legislature, by the voters through the legislation. I mean, come on, people that are sitting up here. Do your homework then. I believe one of the council members said that about me. Do my homework. Okay, when it comes to the Growth Management Act, we don't have to take the growth. There's nothing in the Growth Management Act that says that we have to take it. The second thing is that the tool that's within the Growth Management Act to control growth, to manage it, is concurrency. That's why the council dealt with concurrency, because they didn't want to see the town center just explode on us without a legitimate plan. The plan that I see is a recycled Redmond that's a concept. The drawings are, they look like Redmond, right? That's not what a vision for a bedroom community should be. So please understand, we do not need to take the growth. We might need an attorney that will help us fight for what we have in the Growth Management Act and can protect. But the reality is we don't have to take the growth.
Okay. Ken, what do you think?
Yeah, we don't need to take the growth, okay? The GMA was specifically put into place to control growth, not to promote growth. Concurrency says specifically that infrastructure development is to occur concurrently with growth. Now, they give a little leeway. They say you have to have funding and build the thing within 6 years. But do you know Sahalli has been on our tip, our traffic improvement plan, for 19 years? Nothing is done. And Sahalli has been used to pass the first phase of the town center as if it was done. So get that. When they ran the model to determine whether the additional traffic from the 400 units in the town center would overload Sahalli, into that model went the assumption that Sahalli was already fixed. And those numbers and those additional capacity was assigned and said it was already built. The fact is that the city council is getting together in September again to determine how Sahalli might work, how the improvement might look. This is why we need to look at the details, because when you dig into this, something doesn't work right. I mentioned the numbers before, 200 students for 2,000 units. It doesn't work. 50 additional trips for 400 additional units. These numbers don't work, and it'll be my job on the council to figure this out.
Okay, Karen?
The Growth Management Act isn't perfect. It's been around for a long time. It's been around for over 20 years. The intent, of course, is to concentrate growth, to protect rural areas, and to keep out agriculture, so that you didn't have sprawl, so that we don't look like Highway 99. And to that end, it's actually been effective. We have concentrated growth into towns and into cities. For example, the growth targets for Seattle, they're supposed to take 44% of the growth. And Issaquah and Redmond are supposed to take about 29% each, because they're transit centers. Our percentage is much, much smaller. It's closer to 6%. And so what I'm interested in doing is managing what growth we end up taking. Look, people are going to want to live here. And by the way, we have undeveloped land that's still here. And so we are going to get some growth because people are going to sell their properties. And they're going to use whatever R zone they've got. So you will get some growth, even if you try to shut it down completely, which isn't realistic. So again, it goes back, you get what you plan for. Just, you already know that change is coming. Plan for that change and be smart about what it looks like. And communicate to everybody. Draw the picture, do the video, do the diagram, whatever you need to do so that people are clear about this is what's happening and this is what could happen, and get involved if you want to see something different.
Okay, so we have a choice now, and that choice is, do we keep going, or shall I have closing statements? So I'm going to ask for a raising of hands. I know what that one, there'll always be a one. Jesus said there'll always be 4 people. We can go past very easily. We've already checked with the folks up here, and we can go another like half an hour. So Is that okay with everybody? Yes. Go over half an hour? Great. Come on up. Let's do it. Hi there. My name is Mike Scholes. I live just off of East Lake Sammamish, and I have a 5 and an 8-year-old. And both of this meeting tonight was about traffic, and Stephanie brought up our schools. And Ms. McKnight mentioned we can't do it because of the school districts, and we have impact fees. You guys do have control. You can limit the housing. So I have a very simple question. It's going to be fast because it's a yes or no answer. And it's all about our schools. How can we keep, I don't want my kid in a portable. When my kid goes to Inglewood in 2 years, I don't want there to be a 35-to-1 student-teacher ratio or student-child ratio, okay? We can have 202 be an 8-lane highway. We can have a bridge across Sammamish. Traffic's not an issue. Let's green light on concurrency. What are we doing about the schools? We have levies, we have school district stuff. So my question to you 6 is, and it's going to specify on the town center because it's easy numbers, and Ken alluded to it, yes or no, do you think 2,000 new homes right on top of us is going to help or harm, I'm going to rephrase that, is it going to benefit our children if we put 2,000 homes on the town center without schools being approved? Okay.
No.
No. Yeah, all right. Christie?
No.
No. Karen?
I think the 2,000 homes is a little bit, now I'm not going to answer yes or no, because the 2,000 homes is going to be built out over the life of the town center. It's not happening right now, it's happening through a period of time. So what we have now for the first phase is, as I said, 300 apartments. Those will have fewer children, they're smaller, 113 townhomes. And so when people say the 2,000 homes, it's not clear what's really happening. So the town center is probably a 15-year project, and they're counting total of about 2,000 homes, different types, over that year, those years of it being built.
Okay. Yes or no? No. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no?
It's not a yes or no answer. I answered, thank you.
What do you think?
If you assume that all 2,000 homes are going to have 4,000 or whatever, 4,000 kids, no, the schools cannot support that.
Okay. Karen?
No, schools can't hold them.
Okay. There you go. You get your answer. Next. Oh.
Tell me when.
Okay. Don't walk.
My name is David. I live in Kempton Downs in Sammamish, and I am trying to sort of decode where all of you stand. And there are many issues, obviously growth being number one. And based on your individual stances on growth, specifically regarding the town center, but again beyond, how do you envision, how are things currently being funded for infrastructure? And based on your vision, how are they going to be funded successfully? For example, there is a vision for the town center providing retail, which is a source of income, but is it a true source of income for infrastructure? And could you please clarify how you stand versus your opponent? Thank you.
Okay, let's start with Christie.
Sure. So we currently fund our infrastructure with the revenue sources that the city takes in, which is largely heavily reliant upon property tax right now. It's about 66% of the city's revenue is property tax. When you ask the sales tax question, it's a great question because I keep hearing that, well, if we bring in more retail, then that will help. It will, but only this much, because I think we've estimated around $3 million is what we'll get in sales tax revenue if the town center is built out with the existing 600,000 square feet of commercial space that's due to come in there. So REIT is real estate excise tax, and we get, every time someone sells their house, we get REIT, the city does, and we use part of that for our roads. And we are required to have a balanced budget every year, right? We passed our transportation improvement plan, and I think we talked about this earlier, how we don't actually build everything on it. We have an $88 million shortfall currently on our transportation improvement plan. This is assuming we actually build everything that's on it, which has not historically been what we do. But we have to prioritize, and that is key for making sure that we don't have to find additional revenue sources, but can still do projects. And part of it is paid by developers as well. The impact fees for schools, we also collect them for parks, and we collect them for roads. We have the highest impact fees in the state. The problem is we never bothered to spend them, and they don't go very far. We are going to use up all of our existing impact fees between Issaquah Falls City Road and Southeast 4th. We will have this much left.
Okay, for the sake of expediency here, it was more of a factual question. I think the mayor was probably the one to answer it the best. Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, so let's go.
66.
I don't, I think I would question that.
I'm sorry. Okay.
I don't think you are correct.
Okay, what am I?
I think there are some real differences in terms of how infrastructure is going to be funded between the two camps of thought for growth. There's a heavy reliance on development for funding, if I understand correctly. So if we halt development, is that an issue regarding funding infrastructure?
Okay.
So can I follow up on his question here? Because
if I'm supposed to repeat the question, I apologize. If we, for example, if we halt development, what are we going to face a pitfall in terms of funding?
So it's always possible you can find a pitfall in funding, but what I will say is for a single family house, we're collecting about $14,000 per house that's built in impact fees that we can use for that purpose. $14,000 doesn't pay much of anything. When you talk about sidewalks, we built a sidewalk in the city of Sammamish that stretched about a block. It was $500,000. So that's why I said our impact fees do not go very far. They are gone on Issaquah Falls City Road and Southeast 4th. We do not have any impact fees after we do that, and we plan for Issaquah Pine Lake Road. They're gone. They don't go very far. And you pay lower impact fees for apartments and for multifamily dwelling units, which case those homes that are in the town center that are not single-family houses are not going to pay $14,000. They're going to pay less.
Okay, so Kent, you had a comment?
So I think the question you're asking, and I'll address your follow-up question, is the question that I hear quite a bit. Does growth pay for growth? Do you need to continue development, and oh my God, if development stops, we'll suddenly run out of money and everything will come crashing down? Christy alluded to the fact that growth does not pay for growth. If growth paid for growth, we would have hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank to pay for all this deferred infrastructure work and road improvement work that we don't have now. So every time we build a new house in Sammamish, every time a new home is built, you, the citizens, every single one of you, incurs a cost that's a deferred cost to improve our infrastructure that house will need to become a part of the city. Roads and stormwater improvements and sewer improvements. All these things need to be paid for. New house does not pay for that. We pay a subsidy to every single new house. So if development was to stop tomorrow, we would actually be in better shape dollar-wise to fix our infrastructure than we would if we added another 2,000 homes. 2,000 homes, $20,000 each one, we're in the whole $40 million each one. So we have to be aware, growth does not pay for growth. We do not need continued development to pay for our infrastructure improvements of the past and future.
Did that make more sense? Okay, let's start with this question.
I'd just like to say, though, as town center is developed and we have more commercial, we have the extra tax base of the commercial property. When we have multi-unit, when we have apartment buildings, that pays a higher tax, property tax. Right now, the big concern is that 90% of our city income is from homeowner property taxes. So we need to diversify our taxes. And the sales tax, right now, it's our second highest source of income. So people say, well, it's not that much. Well, right now, it's our second highest income in this city. So once we have the development, and the development pays for a good percentage of growth. When the neighborhoods are built, after they're built, the developer transfers those roads and cities and the stormwater drains that they build and the sewers to the city. And also, they are required a lot of times to improve the road along their development. So that does accomplish a lot of it. And if we don't have construction, we don't have the tax from the construction work that happens. And there also, as we take growth, one of the controls through the Growth Management Act is when we take a certain percentage of growth, that allows us we can apply for grants. So if we say, nope, we're not taking growth, we don't get grants.
Yeah, right. So
We get grants. You can get grants.
It would seem to me that the solution would be to turn Sammamish into a giant retirement community with no kids and no problems. Yeah, you walk down the stairs.
Can we just add another golf course?
Yes, sir.
My name is Fabian, and I live in the Sammamish Country Club. Excuse me. I've been in the field of traffic engineering, transportation planning for more than 25 years, and I've been working for different cities. So I'm quite familiar with all the discussions that you've had tonight. I want to make some observation and maybe some education. Mayor brought up and most of you brought up the issue of concurrency. Concurrency is defined as doing concurrent. So if you add a trip to the system, you increase the capacity of your network to compensate for added trips. So if you assume that that is the direction that you go, because that is, in a way, it's mandate based on the growth management act, that the local jurisdiction have to stay concurrent. And if you assume that this is the definition of concurrency, so you have to have a parallel increase in capacity to absorb the additional trip that the developer generates. Now translate that into the system that we have in here. And assume for the sake of discussion, use the Safeway Shopping Center at the corner of Inglewood and 228 as the center, geographically north-south, as the center of the city, and draw the line. I've been the resident of Sammamish, and I came in here in 1999 before the incorporation, and actually was very much involved in incorporation discussion. Back then, 228, south of the Safeway Shopping Center, was single lane. In the last 20 years, the capacity doubled. What happened to Sammamish Way north of that? Capacity stayed the same. We added so much of traffic to the north, and one of the candidates brought up the issue of 20,000. I believe, Mayor, I don't know if you brought it or who brought it up. But if you look at the distribution of the trips, that all these 20, it is not 50-50, it is more or less 60-40 or 65-45, which means that 65% of all the trips are people that they live in Sammamish going outside to work. They don't use on the road that you double the capacity. They used on the road that the capacity has not changed since the incorporation of the city. That is part of the problem. Number two, part of the Sammamish Way, most of you probably don't know, is not even in the city, it's in incorporated King County. So the city does not have jurisdiction to improve it all the way to the 202. Number of candidates have brought up the issue of the transit system and why this transit system is not expanded to here. King County Metro and Sound Transit, they rely on the local jurisdiction to get the money to build the system that supports the infrastructure so the transit system would be competitive. So if I have a choice between using the buses versus driving my car, at least I would save some time or at least be equal. And as long as you don't have that infrastructure, there is no incentive for Sound Transit, for King County Metro to bring the bus. Why? Because the bus is going to be stuck in the traffic on the Sammamish Way to get to the 202. So that's why the people, they don't use it. So if you expand the system Of course, the question is this, does the city have the financial resources to build that? And that's why it is important to rely on the regional funds to improve the capacity of the roads that serve the community. So therefore, there is a good service to be given to the buses for those people that they choose to use the system.
You have a question? Would you like to
I have, these are the education part. I just wanted to kind of bring up the issues that a lot of people, they don't realize that yes, the problem is the infrastructure, but you have to look at it. A couple of council members have brought up the Transportation Master Plan. Transportation Master Plan is a plan. The TIP, the Transportation Improvement Plan, that is supposed to provide for the improvement to the system for 6 years, that is the one that you already have.
what's the question?
Now, at this point, I want basically bring some of these points. I have one question.
Okay.
The question is nothing to do with the transportation. Even though that my background is transportation, but I want to kind of bring up an issue. What is the possibility of the election of the council members on the district? Is that something that city has a jurisdiction, or that's a state issue? So each district would have, like the city of Seattle, what is the possibility of entertaining that?
Representational.
Oh.
A representational thing?
No representation, that's correct, yes. Yes. What is the possibility?
It is possible, absolutely.
Is that something that the council would be interested?
It depends, I would say it would have to depend on whether the citizens were interested in it. We had an earlier question about representation of the entire city, and that's what we're charged with. I am charged with that job to represent every single resident of the city of Sammamish. If the people decided that they wanted to district Sammamish and elect rather their elected officials not as at-large, which is what we are considered now, yes, either that or it could be brought by initiative by the residents.
Well, since I happen to be in the northern part of the city, and I speak on behalf of my community, Sahali, as well as the Timberland, we have been kind of looking as an adopted child. There has not been that much, no, seriously, look at your TRP, look at the improvements that you have made. South of the Safeway and the improvement, the network north of the Safeway has been the same as it was in 1999. That's where the problem is.
Yes, one more. Two more.
And I'm going to be brief, I promise. My name is Jennifer Coombs. I've been a resident here in Sammamish since 2013. So I have a brief, hopefully fun question for you guys. So the first one is one word to describe your style of leadership. And then your greatest strength that you think you'll bring to the job, and your honest weakness.
Okay, let's start with the far end, Karen McKnight.
I'd say consensus building, leadership, team building, and my greatest weakness, probably stubborn.
I'm a listener, that's my style of leadership. I listen to everybody, and then take a decision that's in the best interest of the public good. And my weakness, I would say, is, again, I'm very detail-oriented and a hard worker.
One word to describe myself, I am determined. My greatest strength, I am determined. My greatest weakness, I hate to say no.
Yeah. Style leadership, I lead by example. I'm humorous. That's my strength. And my weakness is organization.
As you may be able to tell here, my style is bold. I'm not quiet. I work off of facts. I want to know the facts. That's my how I work. And I am a bit impatient would be a weakness.
And Karen.
In terms of leadership, I am inclusive. In terms of strengths, I'm data-driven. And in terms of weakness, oh, I've got a couple. It's so hard to pick. There are a few. I have a terrible sense of direction. But I would say that I am optimistic at times to a fault. I can believe that I can find a way. Absolutely find a way.
Okay, thank you very much. One last one.
Joan Niehaus, closer to who? My name is Joan Niehaus. I've lived on the plateau 45 years. I've owned property for 52. And I live about a mile from here, outside of Sahalee. So we moved into our home before Sahalee existed. I have got 3 pieces of paper that I got in the mail, and this is about development, not in the big picture, but in the small picture. These are all notice of decision for reasonable use exceptions. These are 3 homes being built down the street from me. I have no sidewalks. Northeast 16th was a gravel road, and it just got paved the other day again by the new Margaret Mead. But these are homes just down the street from me on 211th Avenue Northeast. And they've been granted, supposedly, exceptions based on landslide hazard area and its buffers. That's what their reasonable use exception is going to be. And this is what's happening now. We can talk about big developers, but when I read landslide hazard area, and they're going to build 3 homes on here, these are straight up and down. 211th doesn't go through because it ends. And then it starts down at the bottom, and they're going to place in 3 homes in there. And it says, I mean, we live in an earthquake area, number 1. So how do we manage these one-by-one little things? You can have your big developments, but this affects the property all around where these families live. So I read Department of Community Development. That's probably where I should go to make my words known and to write them out. But this was a great opportunity to say it's one by one. And it isn't just the big developers. We have to, somebody's making money on this, and it's not right. There.
Don't give it to me, I've got it. Okay. So, what we're going to do now, I'm sorry?
Oh, I was going to speak, but
Can we address her?
Can we
Are
address
you
the
ready?
concern?
Sure, why not?
I'll do it quickly. I think, that is a concern, especially when we are allowing houses to be built on steep slopes, and I'm assuming that was zoning done by King County. So this is a long time ago. Most of the zoning that has been done in Sammamish is by King County. And another factoid is that 85% of the construction that you see in Sammamish was permitted by King County, as the remaining 15% that you see newer is under Sammamish codes. I am a huge proponent of the Unified Development Code, which helps better development. It creates communities and not just products, as the developers like to call it, so I would be pushing for that. Also, secondly, there's a program called TDRs, Transfer of Developmental Rights. That is a program that has been done in Sammamish, and that is what it would allow the homeowners who are property owners in those steep slopes to relocate somewhere else in the city where they can construct there and then transfer this receiving site, the site that is hazardous, to the city, which the city can retain for, just as an open space. So I would be a proponent of doing something like that.
Okay.
Can I address?
I will say one thing. I will say that I've lived up on the plateau here for almost 40 years myself. And King County had a very, very active plan of not doing any infrastructure to, that was their way of managing growth. Don't fix the streets, don't put any sidewalks down, and my personal opinion is we're past that. So, having said that, I'm going to turn it over to the mayor. That's what I get for doing here.
So I wanted to address what you brought up here, which is a reasonable use exception, or RUE as we call them. And a reasonable use exception exists in state law. So basically, when somebody has a parcel, even though it's encumbered by the landslide hazard area, everybody has to get what's called a reasonable use out of that parcel. So there's nothing that we could do in code that would prevent somebody from being able to get at least one house on a parcel. So that's why you're getting the notice of an RUE while it's in the landslide hazard area. But what I will say is that council just passed on Tuesday, or will, we finished the public hearing, which is new stormwater regulations that will cover exactly where you are talking about. And so they are going to have to do a better job of containing all of the stormwater runoff from that site, which will be incredibly critical in the landslide hazard area, because everything that goes downhill is going to hit the lake, and it affects downhill neighbors. And so it's incredibly important for tree retention on those sites, because the coniferous trees are what soak up the water in the wintertime. But those RUEs are something that we can't change. So again,
So you can build on anything that looks like this?
if it's an existing parcel, so that could not be subdivided.
Okay, so we're going to have 1.5 minutes of a closing statement, people communicating exactly what they want you to know. We're going to go backwards from the way we came, which I think was going to start with Kent, and you have 1.5 minutes.
Hi, Kent Treen. Yeah. I ran for office because there was a development that was going on above me on a pilot program, and it was exactly what this lady was talking about, on a steep slope, landslide, criticals area. We're going to allow the development, destroy the wildlife corridor. And I said, enough of that. Let's go down to the city and see what's going on. And we did our research, we did our homework on our own property. We knew we had that. I know I have what I have, right? And so then to see somebody take that same thing, they knew what they had and what they bought, and then they want to put 30 homes on it. To me, that just didn't seem like it was good for the city as a whole, because it was going to destroy the wildlife corridors. So the difference between the candidates up here is really the people who see us as a bedroom community and those who see us as a Redmond recycle, that they want to build a town center. I'd err on the side of caution. The development will come, we will grow, but we right now don't need to be Redmond revisited.
Karen McKnight.
Okay, first I'd like to thank you for your time, and this has been a really interesting forum. I want to leave you with these thoughts. I have proven experience in leadership, consensus building, team building, and chairing meetings. I feel our city council needs my skills to make it more constructive, to get more done for our citizens, and to make our meetings a better representation of our city. I have no personal agenda. I just want to serve this city that has been my home for 39 years. I see its potential, and I've been very disappointed the last few years at the lack of progress. I feel nothing has been accomplished except spending over $1 million on redundant traffic studies. The council voting bloc has spent too much time in the weeds and doesn't have a vision for our city. If you don't know where you're going, you'll never get there. I'm an action taker. I rely on my excellent staff to do research, and I give credit to those who do the work rather than demean them. We have a crisis in our city staffing because we have lost many valuable employees who have left for nearby cities. My goal is to be part of the solution that makes our staff stay with us and work hard because of the vision and culture of our city. I've started a list of what you'd like to see in Sammamish. My contact information is out in the hall, so please feel free to contact me. I'm Karen McKnight. I approve this message, and I'd appreciate your vote.
Okay, and now we have Karen Howe.
So I'll talk about the future. I envision a community where no matter where you live or who you are, you can enjoy living in a place that's healthy, prosperous, and resilient. We all want to live and work someplace in a great neighborhood, and I believe in smart growth solutions that support thriving businesses and jobs and provide more options for how people can get around and make it more affordable to live near where you work and get to the grocery store. We can improve lives by improving our community. At the heart of my vision for this future is the simple hope that each of us can choose to live in a neighborhood that's beautiful and affordable, in one in which it's easy to get around, and we can create a healthy community with strong local businesses, schools and shops nearby, and transportation options. There's ways to do this, and it's simple adoption of planful thinking, mixed-use land, compact design, a range of housing options. We should foster distinctive, attractive communities with a strong sense of place, provide a variety of transportation options, make development decisions, to your point earlier, that are predictable, fair, and cost-effective, and encourage community collaboration and development and decisions so that nobody is caught unawares or feels that something snuck up on them somehow. So I'm Karen Howe for position 4, and I would be honored to get your vote.
Okay, thank you. Christy?
Sammamish is a beautiful, growing, and diverse community. With growth comes the need to keep pace via capital and service enhancements to preserve our quality of life. I will continue to listen to concerns, implementing tangible changes to complex issues. I will continue to serve as your advocate at City Hall and dutifully manage our finances. I will continue elevating environmental concerns, work with our regional partners, and advocate for all residents in Sammamish to ensure our future creates the best community possible. I am committed to the highest level of communication and interaction with residents, thoughtful consideration for our community's character, providing enhancements to meet our community's needs while listening and working with everyone who loves and cares about Sammamish. This election is a clear choice for residents. Deploy the resources of the Growth Management Act, which gives us the power to provide adequate support for development, or pretend that it's the Growth Mandate Act, and continue to tie our own hands and recycle excuses from the past as to why we can't invest to support the growth. This degrades our quality of life. As an elected official, I have served for 3.5 years on the Public Issues Committee, and I'm currently serving as the vice chair for this committee, which is the Sound Cities Association. I serve on the Domestic Violence Regional Task Force for King County. I am an alternate to the Puget Sound Regional Council's Executive Board. I am a small business owner here in Sammamish. I served on the Issaquah School District's Bond Feasibility Committee. I am a parent, I am a wife, and I am a volunteer. On November 5th, I ask for your vote to preserve our quality of life here in Sammamish. Thank you.
Thank you all for being so patient and a great audience. If you would indulge me, I would like you to envision this Sammamish. Consider 10 years from now. The streams, the lake, the wetlands, and the open spaces that brought you here are thriving. The urban forest canopy has grown from 48% to just over 50%. The kokanee in the streams outnumber the people in the city of Sammamish. Congestion has declined to a manageable level. We have a great senior center. We have spaces for our kids to hang out after school. That is the vision I have for Sammamish. And I've heard from more than 3,500 people of you that this is the Sammamish you would like to continue to live in. You have a choice. You have a choice to elect somebody with a deep legal background, with deep roots in the community, who has served the community, who will reach across the aisle, bring consensus, and has experience working on policy, and whom you trust to maintain the quality of life and get results. I have been endorsed by hundreds of Sammamish residents, by the Sierra Club, and the Washington State Conservation Voters. My name is Rituja Indapure. I'm running for position 6, and I'd be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
And we're going to end with Ken.
So thanks for coming, everybody. So I'll give you a couple of facts you may not know. Sammamish is consistently ranked as one of the best cities in the entire United States. We are ranked in the top 3 safest cities in Washington, one of the most educated cities in Washington. We're ranked number 2 on the list of the best places to raise a family, and our amazing schools are ranked number 3 in the state. And we all get to live here. It's a wonderful place. But this is changing. If we continue to build and develop as we have done in the last few years, building thousands of new homes, allowing the clear cutting of our beautiful green spaces, and allowing traffic, increasing traffic, to take away from our time with our families and friends, without building the appropriate infrastructure, then we are going to damage this Sammamish that we know irreparably. It's not reversible when the houses are built. Listen, I don't have all the answers to the traffic problems right now on Sahalia or anywhere else, but I do have the next best thing. I know how to stop the damage from occurring. Let's talk to everyone. Let's work with everyone. Let's get input from the best minds. Let's find solutions to our traffic, school, and infrastructure. But for goodness sakes, while we're in the process of solving these sticky problems, let's stop making the problems worse by keeping to build. The more houses we build, the more problems we have. Let's pause the residential construction, find and implement the solutions, then we can look at further development. Thank you so much. Ken Gamble.
We're going to have a wrap-up comment by Renee. And
Short person. So I want to thank everybody for staying and just looking around the room. Everybody was very interested all night. So I want to thank the residents that had questions. I want to thank the other residents that listened and took notes. So thank you very much. I want to extend a warm thank you to all of our candidates. I know it took a lot for you to be here, and you're all very passionate and had great answers. Thank you for following the rules. I hope everybody learned a lot tonight. Let me also thank Dave for being an outstanding moderator and a phenomenal and Lauren for being a phenomenal timer. As a thank you for the candidates, I have some party gifts. So, anybody have any last questions? Everybody go vote.